We want to work with the nervous system in ways to turn down the sensitivity dial. So we don't want to poke or stretch or squeeze or try to like rub out pain in this area, no pun intended. But we want to start to introduce sensations to the parts that hurt, or if they're too sensitive to even touch, work away from the parts that hurt first. Remember, all the nerves here communicate with one another. So you can touch your belly, you can touch your back, you can touch your butt muscles, you can touch your thighs, even your feet. The nerves that go down to your feet, your toes, your heel, your ankle, also come from the nerves that exit your sacrum, which is the end part of your spine, in this whole area. So know that they're traveling along the same neurological highway, and anywhere that you touch that feels good is going to be registered in a pleasurable way. So we want to pleasure hunt, is where I'm getting at. So part of the homework that I tend to give people who have pain in this area is say, let's start to pleasure hunt or map out areas of your body that actually feel good or less bad. Okay, so the expectation is not to have pain to go away at first. It's more of this curious exploration of, well, what other parts of my body feel safe? What other parts of my body feel good, yummy, etc., etc. And that, again, that's going to look very different. So this can be done in the shower. You're already putting soap on your body. You might as well use soap and soft touch to start to experience, well, what is it like for the soap to rub against my skin, maybe even around your genitals, your scrotum, but you're doing it in a way like you're feeling your way through with curiosity. And what I mean by that is that pretend you're in this room, like pretend you're in a room that you've never been in before, and the lights are off, and it's completely dark, and you have to like get out. Now you can run in this room and freak out, but you don't know what's in the room and if you would hurt yourself because you have no idea what's around you. So that's one option. Or two, you can feel your way out, right? It might take a longer time. It might take for you to feel calm and kind of work your way through, but you're feeling your way out. And eventually you'll come to the light switch or the door and you'll be out. So that's kind of how I like to describe the practice of sensory integration in the form of touch. So you're touching yourself, you're feeling areas of your body that don't hurt, and then you slowly work towards the areas, the parts and bits that do hurt, but you're doing it in a very compassionate and curious way, in a way that is not reflexively inducing the pain response or causing guarding. And again, that's trial and error for what that would look like for you. Okay, it could be done over clothes. It could be done without clothes. You can use lotion. You can use different textures like silk or a feather. You can use vibration. Sometimes vibration and different pulsations feel good. Again, it just depends on what's going to work for you. And I highly recommend working with a qualified therapist who can help guide you through the process. Okay. All right. So that's one way with touch. The second way is with movement, providing movement in your body in whatever ways feel good for you. There is no one there is no one better exercise or movement than another. So that's based on research. Like, we know exercise is good, we know movement is good, but we actually don't have evidence to support that doing one thing one way is better than the other. What we do know is that the things that you choose to do for yourself should make you feel happy. You should feel like you enjoy doing these activities. So if it's walking or biking or running or swimming or yoga or whatever it is that you like, pick something that you like to do, and that's going to be the best movement or physical activity that works for you. And sometimes it's playing around with different things if you haven't tried out different movements or exercises. Just kind of trying things out and see what works for you. But movement is very nourishing. So anything that you can do to stretch and have blood flow to this area is going to be very helpful. Okay. So things like folding forward, bending forward, child's pose. If you're not familiar with that, it's more, let me kind of show you what that looks like. Okay. So those two postures and shapes can really help to nourish the nerves in this area and provide that stretch. Very similar to what I would do with my arm and my neck and the nerves of my arm and the tissues of my arm. So you can do postures and shapes like that. I love things on hands and knees because that's a natural traction for men to get in their scrotum and their penis. And again, it seems weird at first, I think, for any guy to be like, you want me to do what? You can have loose boxers or be naked if you feel comfortable with that. But it just going on your hands and knees and allowing the tissues of your scrotum and penis to naturally stretch while you breathe into your lower belly. It's very common for us to want to suck in our abdomen because we're told to do that, and that's not necessarily a good thing. We want relaxation and letting go in all parts of our muscles, because my fist would, or my hand would not be functional if I just sucked it in and kept it like that all day. It would not be usable. So we definitely want to let go and squeeze at appropriate times for appropriate function and muscle coordination and control. So the same thing happens down there as well. So movement, very helpful. Speaking of movement, I would also encourage, because when you have an erection, these muscles tense around those structures, which is a completely normal, natural thing to do, right? You want blood flow to your penis, you want firmness in your penis, awesome. But again, when things are sensitive, any added tension, which is again completely normal, but things have been turned up, there's little wiggle room for more tolerance, tissue tolerance, or change in the environment, both mechanically and chemically when we're talking about an erection. Okay? So again, very normal to feel increased sensitivity during those moments. And so what we want to do is work on dialing that down in the moment with breath, with perhaps different postures or movements, change what you're doing. But breathing, I think, is very beneficial because that's a natural thing that you can work on yourself without having to, get in a different shape or posture in the moment, right? Breathing, when we take a deep breath, and I mentioned this earlier, and we visualize that breath extending to the pelvic diaphragm, that naturally expands tissues and mobilizes them naturally. So if you lie on your back and do this breathing technique and just visualize, or on hands and knees, the posture that I just showed you, doing that in those positions, you'll start to notice natural movement of this part of your body. And again, it's subtle because these muscles are tiny, and it's about the awareness piece that you're practicing with. And again, the more aware you are of your own habits throughout the day, you can mitigate how much tension is being provided through the system, so that when you do have an erection, or you or ejaculate, because when you ejaculate, squeeze release happens. Again, if the natural habit is to be squeezed and there's no release or very little, then again, that added tension and that added load might be enough just to push things over the edge. And remember, the sensors are picking up on that, and they're saying, this is completely different. What's going on here? And then the brain's like, oh my gosh, we've been here before. Protect, protect, protect. And then this part of your body squeezes more. And so there's just, again, this huge miscommunication. So we're trying to normalize the process and slowly and gradually build up tissue tolerance with squeezing and releasing. And that becomes a little challenging because when you have an erection, you can't have you can't control, you can't be like, all right, now I'm going to have a full erection and dial back down. You might be able to do that with breathing because that happens naturally and when you're mindful and you kind of, they call it edging, where you edge towards and then back off, and that might change the texture and the firmness of your penis. But once you're plateauing and ejaculating, that there's you can't really control that. That's a natural thing that happens. Squeeze, release, squeeze, release. It helps to emit fluid, semen from the penis out, and so that's ejaculate, right? And so again, natural processes that happen, but when the threshold has been raised, you really have a small window for tissue tolerance, and the nerves are picking up on this change very quickly because they're already sensitive to begin with, and any little change tends to set things off. Okay, so we use treatments like movement and breathing and touch to start to normalize these processes again, and also even in, as I said, breathing into this area, but contracting too. So I say releasing and letting go, but we really want to also engage with the squeeze for strengthening conditioning, once we kind of, as Greg Lehman would put, calm shit down and build shit back up. So I will leave it with that. I think as far as treatment strategies goes, in terms of what to do in that area, and as I said, you could even with manual therapy, which I didn't say, you could also gently provide just a massage to the penis itself to help mobilize the tissues and the nerves going through the foreskin, and in between, those corpora cavernosa and corpora spongiosum, you can certainly just massage your penis. Again, I'm not squeezing so hard. Everyone's got their own pressure sensors and preferences, but you're just gently massaging. You can even gently stretch. Sorry, I should switch my hands. You can even gently stretch the penis one direction and another, again, to work with the nervous system that way and stretch nerves and get blood flow to the tissue without necessarily feeling aroused or going the entire way. Okay, so those are ways that you can start to normalize these tissues and work with yourself should you be experiencing pain in this area.